Well, hello. This is the Be Engaged podcast, where we talk to brilliant minds and elevate discussions in many industries, all in an effort to promote unity in this world. Okay, so today I'm talking with Biet Simkin, author of the best-selling book, Don't Just Sit There. She is also a spiritual teacher and founder of Breathwork System that alters consciousness. So Biet, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Michelle. Nice to be together.
Great. Well, hey, we have known each other for how long now?
I think it's been like a couple years.
It's been a couple
2 years?
years. Yeah, we
Yeah.
know each other's tendencies for sure, but I want to get to know you more. Like I feel like this is our opportunity to get to know each other more beyond our day to day, which is great.
Yeah, what a gift.
Yeah. Okay, so the podcast, we start out with a fun fact, get into the discussion, and then we do like a quote of the podcast. That's the way we ended up. So, okay, so fun fact. So, a fascinating fact is that the ancient Tibetan monks practiced a form of meditation called tumo, which translates to inner fire. It's a technique to generate heat in the bodies to withstand extreme cold. Pretty wild, right? So you're aiming to for calm. A good place to start is to focus on your breath. Mindful breathing can be powerful, paying attention to the inhales, exhales. So what do you think about that? That's kind of aligned to what you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the breath exercises. There's an exercise called Breath of Fire. I don't know if you saw the new deck that I just came out with, but Hachette and I came out with this gorgeous deck. It's like a coffee table book meets
Okay.
tarot deck.
I love new stuff. I love new products. Ooh, breath
So
work.
it's a breath
Great.
work guided by Biet, and it's 30 breath work practices to enhance your everyday well-being.
Okay.
And one of those will be a breath of fire. So breath of fire is a 2-minute breath practice that allows you to, again, set fire to your body, create heat. It would keep you warm in the cold. It also gives you energy. It's kind of like they call it a cup of coffee. Like
Oh,
a little espresso for the day. So it's nice to just kind of pop in there. I founded my own breathwork system. So 2 of the cards are my signature trademarked breathwork system.
okay.
One is an advanced kind that literally makes people pass out, think they're
Whoa.
seeing God, like have seizures. Like there's a lot of things that can happen with my signature practice, none of which are dangerous, ironically. However,
Okay.
you shouldn't do the breath practice while driving or near a glass table or near a potted plant, because if you do lose consciousness, you don't want to come into contact
Yeah.
with something sharp.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
The consciousness is brief, and then when you return, you feel like realigned. There's also a light version for those of us who are less brave or just want to something pop in while they're in their cubicle or like while you're in a public place. Like I've done it on planes, I've done it in the back of Ubers,
Oh,
and that breath work is the light version of my signature practice, and that gets you high as balls, but you won't faint.
yeah. No fainting in that one. Oh, fantastic. So take us to the beginning. And I read a little bit about this in your book, but how did you start this career? What a fascinating career, fascinating
Thanks.
lifestyle. And how did you start? What's your background?
My dad was an awakened shaman, so I
Hmm.
studied with him my whole life. He was kind of like this Mr. Miyagi, like I walked into the kitchen and he was like teaching me how to wax on and wax off. If you can imagine a father like that. And he wasn't also like, I think a lot of people have parents who they don't get along with. Like we have that,
Hmm.
especially in America. It's like you have this parent, and even if they're cool or interesting, there's this whole like, yeah, like leave me alone,
Yeah.
whatever. My
Well, I'm
dad
in the
was
middle of that right now with my oldest, so I'm right there.
Well, that's an age, right? I mean, it'll pass
Yeah.
and then he'll like love you guys, right? But like with my dad, he was such a renegade and such an outsider that there was never that phase with him. And I think it was because he wasn't great at parenting. You, I know, are like a terrific parent, both of you.
Thank
You
you.
and your husband are like, you're just, you're like phenomenal parents. You really have
Oh,
boundaries
I
and
don't know.
rules.
I don't know.
I
We're
think so.
trying.
I think you're good. My dad would definitely qualify in like the worst parent ever
Oh.
award, would go to him. And but while being a really bad parent, he was an amazing teacher, an amazing
Oh.
friend, and an
Mm-hmm.
amazing co-pilot in life and an amazing many things. And
Mm-hmm.
magic. Our house was filled with magic. But there was no boundaries, there was no homework, there was no
Mm.
rules, there was nothing. You could just do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted to, because all was made out of love. And so while that's great, And it created, I literally never had to rebel against him. I never dyed my hair purple.
Yeah.
I never like questioned my sexuality. Like I just was so non-rebellious in every way.
You're like, well, this is the opposite. I'm actually great. This is
I'm
actually fun.
fine. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm fucking fine, you know? The world is the problem, you know, it's just whatever. Like, I just wasn't trying to like find myself. Anyway, I studied with him my whole life. And I had a very tragic life. And so those tragedies, I believe, lent to my being. I think that I was born the way that I am. I have a gift. I'm able to really transform the way people see the world. I'm able to dial in truth. Like someone said to me the other day, I was giving her a session and she was like, are you a medium? Like, do you read oracle cards? Like, what do you do? And I was like, no, like there's nothing woo woo about what I do. I'm just going to tell you the truth. And no one's ever done that before. So it's going to feel radically different, but I have a gift with being able to. I think people can hear me. I think also because I had this fucked up childhood and I come from this hardcore background growing up in the streets of New York. And you know, I'm not a soft kid, you know, like I'm a tough kid.
Yeah.
So people can hear it from me.
Yeah. You're like, I'll tell you straight up what's happening
I'll
here.
tell you this straight up.
So your father was an immigrant, though, correct? Was he an immigrant to New York? Okay, so then you come to New York. You're in downtown or Brooklyn or somewhere, Queens.
Yeah.
And then he has no boundaries, and you're in the house, but your mother wasn't there, correct? You
My
just
mom died. She died when I was 6.
yeah. And so you were like, okay, well, I'm with dad. Great teacher. Maybe not the parent that you maybe desired. So you're on your own.
I didn't
And
desire a parent. No kid does. So that's the thing is like you don't realize till you're older that you missed having a parent. When you're a kid and you have someone who's just your bro, your road dog, you think you've won the fucking lotto. You know, you're like other kids have homework and bedtimes. I'm kicking it, you know?
yeah.
But you don't realize that on the unconscious part, that's stuff that I had to deal with later in life. Like I was like, oh wow, I've never been parented. I had to reparent myself as an adult, you know? I have lots of boundaries now, rules.
Yeah.
Like you know me, like it's really G-rated up in here. Like it's really
Yeah,
G-rated.
you're a lot
you know?
more healthy than we are. I'm like, here's some ramen. I'm like, I know it's not good, but it's easy.
I'll do some ramen here and there, you know. I think I'm more on the ramen side, you know. My husband is more like he's like, I don't know what's he's like Gwyneth Paltrow, you know. It's like Gwyneth Paltrow. If you were married to Gwyneth Paltrow, you're married to my husband, basically.
I love that. We're from the Midwest, but I'm the youngest of 6. And so by the time I came along, my mom was just like, if you don't get in trouble, if you don't do anything, you're not going to have any rules. I didn't really have curfews. She actually worked at night sometimes. And so I was able to do whatever I wanted. I didn't do anything because I didn't have, I never got in trouble. And I was like, well, okay, because nobody else could go out late at night either. But I mean, this is the middle of Kansas, so what are you going to do? Okay, so you got into it. And then so you're young, and in the book, it talks about a little bit about your experience as you were younger, kind of, you were like a professional singer. Like, I think this is amazing. And sometimes I hear you sing, you're pretty damn good.
Oh,
Pretty good. Where did that, I mean, I've been to actually one of your events, and maybe more than one. But you are magical. You are interesting. You are different. You do have a special quality. And then you can sing. Like, that's not even fair. That's not even fair now. How did you get into the singing part and get discovered?
I was born singing. Sunday's singing. It's so cool. My younger daughter, like Cash sings, but Sunday literally is not even 2 yet. And she walks around singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Like it's in its entirety. I'm like, how are you doing this? You know?
Yeah.
Tanto, tanto, ira star. I'm like, what are you doing? I was like that. They called me the singing baby. They would stroll me around Queens and I would just sing and sing and sing. And my family was very musical. My grandfather was the first chair violinist for the Leningrad Philharmonic.
Okay.
And my dad was a jazz musician before he became a medical doctor and then a shaman, which you heard about. So my dad was like also a Renaissance man. I mean, yeah. And then my mom sang as well. And so we were kind of like the family Von Trapp. We used to walk down the streets of Queens and do 4-part harmonies. Me, my brother, my mom, and my dad.
Yes.
I got signed to Sony when I was 18. I was in a band from the time that I was 16 playing like CBGBs and all the clubs in New York City.
Sony. That's pretty good. Like, how do you even, you said 16 or 18? I think you said
Signed at 18.
signed at
Joined a
18.
band at 16.
Joined a band at 16. So they just discover you in New York. You're playing, and Sony's like, oh, this has got some serious skills. Like, that's amazing. That's really young, though, to have
Yeah.
that much success really young. How much did that affect you?
It didn't, I mean, I had a huge ego, so, and I continue to till this day. I just don't let it like run my life, but I felt very entitled to that. And I thought I was the best singer in the world. I'm still pretty sure I'm up there, but I'm just like, I just don't get that just because you have talent that you get to have, you don't, not everyone gets to be Adele.
Yeah.
And I
There's
got signed.
circumstances and
Yeah.
timing and a lifestyle that you may or may not want. So, yeah, those are all decisions, kind of.
Or not. Like, some people don't get to make decisions. Some people try and fail, and that's another aspect of reality. And other people sort of try and sort of fail. You know what I mean? I feel like when we really want something, we have to admit that there are blocks inside us. And I had so many blocks inside me that I had yet to discover. And the truth is that while I'm very talented and I'm very good at singing and songwriting, I have a lot of other things working against me. And had I become as famous as I wanted to have become at 18, I probably would be Amy Winehouse right now. I'd be dead.
Yeah.
Like, I was so untethered and in so much pain from a very, very tragic life, which we've only glossed over with the mom death part. It was like an onslaught of tragedies. And I had no money. We grew up in the streets. My mom was dead. I was just so depressed. And even though I had these spiritual tools, I also didn't know how to actually use them, because the core principle, and this is what I teach, behind spiritual tools is you need to have your fucking feet on the ground. You need to understand how to have spreadsheets and like know what's in your bank account. And you need to know how to practice self-care. You need to know how to have a community of friends and not be a total asshole. You need to hold down relationships. Like, there's so many core understandings that I did not have. Like, I couldn't keep a boyfriend. I always picked the wrong kind of guys. I always dated like not the worst. Like, I wasn't dating like the kind of guys that like burn down your house, but like I dated like just the wrong, dude.
Yeah, maybe not as nice as they could be.
They weren't even mean. They were so aloof. Like, they just were wrong. Like, it was just all wrong,
You're like, all this is wrong.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to make money. I didn't know how to show up. I didn't know how to follow through. I didn't have I just was an entitled little brat who had had a lot of pain and a lot of talent. And for whatever
a lot
reason,
of freedom with no
a lot of freedom
structure. And you're
and no
like, oh,
structure.
so this is what happens, huh?
Yeah, I don't think I burned it to the ground. Like, luckily, I can say honestly, the record industry collapsed while I was getting signed. So I got signed. The record industry collapsed within the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And my record deal, they were driving me around in limos. They were paying for my voice lessons. They were recording my records in Sony studios. Like, I remember like the producer had like a gun on the table and like a box of cigars. Like, it was 1998. Like, it was a different time. I wasn't worried about the gun. It was kind of like fun to me, because I'm a crazy alcoholic. So like, give me chaos. And I'm like, here I am. And I wasn't even doing drugs yet. I was just like drinking, and I was so puffy from drinking.
Oh.
And yeah. So anyway, that all collapsed and all the money went away. And then I, continued on my journey. I became a big
Bootstraps.
DJ and yeah, I just survived. But then I discovered drugs too. So that was like,
So that was a whole era.
yes.
I think that's a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your practice. You talked about the breathing, the cards that you were showing earlier, but just tell us, what practice do you have, and what kind of clientele do you usually work with, and just all of that type of background.
Yeah, essentially, I've been flown all over the globe to speak. I speak a lot. I have a best-selling book. I have this deck. I do partnerships with hotels. I have private clients, and I also just started 2 groups, which makes it more, available. Like, I'm at a very high price point. So working with me one-to-one, it's like someone needs to have it as a write-off, or like they need to be committed. They need to really want that person on their side and have like a very large bank account. For the groups, it's way easier. Like, pretty much anyone can afford being in my groups. So that's been wonderful. And so one is around romance and one is just around like daily spirituality and how to keep it real. with that stuff.
Romance. Wow. Okay, let's start with the romance and then the daily one. I didn't know you did the romance stuff. What's the just
Yeah,
to
if you
get
know
more
any like
engaged?
perpetually single ladies, like please send
Oh,
them my way. Yeah, I have a key answer to that stuff. You know, I solved it myself. I've been in a healthy relationship for 15 years
uh-huh.
and monogamous and happy and you know all the stuff. And before that I didn't. And so the work that I did to get to that place is the work that I teach. I
Yeah.
mean, I podged it together. It was like books that I read that year, this specific process that I went through. I take people through it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've been taking people one to one through it for about a decade now, and it's just very effective.
Life changing, I would imagine.
Life changing. Yeah, people
Yeah.
go from like being chronically single or always dating the wrong people to being with the man of their dreams or being with the woman
Oh,
of their
good.
dreams.
Oh, good. And then the lifestyle part of it is just the other side, the romantic and then the lifestyle. The lifestyle is just healthy, just becoming more authentically you, the breathing exercises, the meditation I'm imagining. Tell us more
Mm.
about that.
Yeah, I think it's all that. And also like being in touch with your own like cringe factor, you know,
Mm,
being in touch with your inadequacy. I feel like we all go to parties and like try to show people how great we are. You know, like we
mm-hmm.
chit chat with people. We're like, I'm amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
then you'll say, oh, me too. And then we all just talk about how amazing we are. And then we all go home and feel very lonely. And so
Mm,
my work that I teach and really help people through in one-to-one and in the groups is having them touchstone that pain point, which is that we're all kind of alone unless we share vulnerably in what ways we're not actually doing great or in which ways we're vulnerable. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, like I had a medical condition last week or something. It doesn't have to be so like awkward like that. It's
mm-hmm.
more about sharing the ways in which, you know, we do things that we wish we didn't do. We have habits that we wish we didn't have. And somehow by shedding light on that and sharing it vulnerably with your peers and people you respect and you know, people of excellence, I found really helps me. Like, because I used to always feel comfortable sharing, bestowing, like, I'd go to, like, I don't know, like a crack house or something or a jail. I've spoken in a lot of prisons in my life because I'm an alcoholic. So, like, I have this
Yeah.
crazy story. Like, my house burnt down, my daughter died of sudden infant death syndrome. I'm
Yeah.
like very tragic. I've lived in the ghetto. I've been almost raped. I've been held up at gunpoint. Like, you name it, it's
You're there.
happened. Yeah. So I can go to a jail. I'm like, I don't know. You have seen nothing that I have not seen. I know I seem like some white girl, but I am not some white girl. I promise you. And so I always felt like really cool sharing with someone like that who's like down and out all my weaknesses. Oh,
Yeah.
here's how I'm weak. Well, I'm afraid. I'm doubtful. I'm insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I realized as I grew in fame and success and became a best-selling author and became a speaker and became a huge success was that I felt more and more lonely the more I hid
Hmm.
under that umbrella. Yeah, because it made me feel separate from or better than somehow. And I'm like, I'm not better than you. I'm not better than those women in the jail. So I'm definitely not better than some rando person I'm meeting in the streets of California. Like it's just we're all fucking lost. We're all hurtling towards death. We have no idea how we got here.
Yep.
Let's be honest. And so kindness is king. And I think vulnerability and inadequacy is king. You know,
Yeah.
because then the more I can be comfortable with that cringe factor, the more I can make, you know, you ever seen like Ray Charles sing? And
Yeah.
he makes these like crazy faces kind of sometimes while he's singing.
Yeah.
Like I kind of want to make faces like that while I go through like, I don't want to like be some
Yeah.
whitewashed like robot version of Biet. And the only way that I've seen work of that is sharing my inadequacies with power players, like being like, oh, well, you're
Peers.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make money and like do cool shit and
Mm-hmm.
I want to tell you. And so that's what I do inside the groups and with my private clients is I'm like, I tear them a new asshole. I'm like, I'm not here to fucking
You got
co-sign your
issues just like
bullshit.
I do. Let's talk
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
A, and B, how are we going to get into your greatness?
Yeah.
Because they're hiding under each other. Your greatness is hiding underneath your inadequacy. So if you keep running from your inadequacy, acting like it's not your best friend, you're never going to find your greatness. It's literally hidden underneath all the ways in which you suck at life.
That authenticity part, I was just talking to somebody else about the external self and then the internal, tragedy, and then coming like authenticity. She was explaining it like authenticity is really meeting in the middle. You're not going, oh, I'm so fantastic, or this is the worst me ever. It's more, evenly showing up to both and just saying, I'm representing both sides. Maybe not too much on one side, but I'm both every day.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds like a good, it's a good description of it. I'm both every day. Like I would just love it if it wasn't like that though. And I
Hmm.
think all of us would. I don't enjoy all my defects of character and the pain and the difficulty and the fear. I'm not like, woohoo, we're in that part of this process, you know?
You're like, let's just take this one. Let's soften that part. Let's soften the bad parts.
I can't. There's no way. Like you'd have to
Yeah.
what, take a Prozac? Like I'm not taking anything. I'm not drinking anything. So what are you gonna, I'm taking my pain and my terror straight, you know?
Yeah. With a little water, with a little lemon on the side here. Okay, so on the consciousness, altering your consciousness, that is my favorite part of
Mm.
your practice and kind of what you talk about. And what does that mean? So, when I went to your event, it really was powerful. And I don't know, the combination of something really did make me very emotional. And that altering of the consciousness, how would you explain that? I don't exactly know how to talk through it and or what I felt.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, our consciousness is dulled on a daily basis because our life and our bodies and our minds are designed to keep from us key experiences. So it keeps from us our emotions, like we learned to dull emotions as children because they
Hmm.
were scary to us or dangerous, or maybe we, were met with less than excitement by our parents and, adults when we freaked out, So feelings aren't really a big feature of consciousness. Um, I think we have true desires as humans, big, big, scary, hairy desires. And I think we numb that out because to admit that we want more would be to be present to the fact that where you are now, and that distance hurts people too much. So most people just pretend that's not happening, that distance. So I help people to be with that distance. Um, and then in terms of consciousness is I help people to stop time, right? So time doesn't actually exist. I understand that it exists the way that we perceive it to be, like I'm gonna die one day and like now I'm, 45 and then I'll be 46. I understand that's what reality looks like. But what I have verified to be true is that it is time that keeps us from being in bliss. It is the idea of time. And so if you do these practices, you do my signature breath, you do the meditations that I suggest, you listen to me, I break your shit open, what happens is time ceases to exist. And for that moment, you're able to be in the future self. So let's say there is a distance. Let's say like your highest dream you can think of. For me, I know I'm like at a 7 out of 10 with that.
Hmm.
And so 7, it's like painful. By the way, there's nobody who's doesn't have a category in their life for which they're still at a 7. Like nobody is living at a 10 out of 10 in every category of their life. There's still some new category. I work with the highest performing people in the world. They still have categories where they're 7 to 10, So time, once you eradicate it, once you take the consciousness away of time, what happens is you're able to be one with that version of you. And when you can be one with the version of you that has succeeded in that area of desired wish fulfillment, you start to feel an empowerment of magic occurring. And then what happens is there's this cascading back to see the seed of what is stopping you from getting from 7 to 10. Because there is something stopping all of us in every area of our life to getting from X to Y.
Hmm.
So how are you going to get to 10 if you don't know what's stopping you at 7?
Hmm.
So changing consciousness just means I create the place where miracles occur. I am not a miracle creator myself. I mean, in my own life I am.
Hmm.
But for my clients and for my students, I am just creating the context in which one can farm their own miracles. I know the process by which your defects of character, your fears, your terror, your insecurities, your doubts, your cringy shit, I know exactly where to plant it and what kind of water to put on it and what kind of fertilizer.
Hmm.
You name the top motherfucking farmer on the planet, I am that to your wildest dreams.
spirituality, spiritual bliss, as we say.
Yeah, but what is spiritual bliss? It's external bliss too. Like me having
Mm-hmm.
like a dope kitchen is also part of my spiritual bliss. Like it's not like people think spiritual bliss is just feeling tranquil, but there's
Mm-hmm.
also external manifestations that occur.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
people change their. I think it's both. That's the tricky part, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's me being Zen, even if I was like in a ditch, covered
Mm-hmm.
in dust, and shit was really bad. Yes, it is that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also fucking manifesting the life of my dreams.
Oh, good. I love that. That's fantastic. You are very
Thanks.
good on this podcast, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so one of my last questions. So technology. So technologist, and we had talked a little bit about this. Are you infusing any technology into your practice or your offering or your products? We had the other day a discussion about AI generated kind of avatars. But do you dive into the technology side? This is a little bit about, how do you get your spiritual bliss amongst the technology age, but do you use technology to further your offerings as well?
I mean, in that I use Zoom and Instagram and Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and in that regard, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is painful what we're experiencing in the technological age of the speed of things and all that stuff. But here's the deal: like spirituality was hard long ago when you had to walk through a desert for 30 years or whatever before you found your guru. That is not the difficulty we're facing today. No one has to walk 30 years through a desert to get to me or to get to anyone like me. There's a couple of us on this planet. All you got to do is beep, boop, beep, boop, boop. And there I am on YouTube, Instagram. There's tons of free content. I have a membership that's like $100 a month. You could watch all my videos. Your life could be literally changed while you sit in your underwear. Like that's happening, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the difficulty lies with admitting that there was no time and is no time. That is preferable or a condition that is great
Mm-hmm.
for this kind of work. You either are willing to fucking do it under any circumstances, or you're not willing to do it under any circumstances. Willingness comes from inside. So I don't care if we're living in a literal matrix and we're like all little avatars, or if I'm in a robe walking, from, to Israel or whatever was happening 2000 years ago, like I'm either willing or I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not willing. I mean, I am willing every day, but just some days it's shitty. It doesn't matter. I could meditate for like an hour, do breath work, do the journaling. But if I'm fucking PMSing or like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll still have a shitty day, and that's just how
You're like,
life
this
is.
is what it is. And even the
It is
sauna
what
doesn't help sometimes. You're like, I gotta try.
I'll
That
do
will
it,
get it out of me. And then you're like, oh no, I'm still, yeah.
miserable. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but that's just par for the course because sometimes we're processing things, right? So if we're just
Mm-hmm.
talking about the farming thing, it's like if you found that thing that is not working in you, maybe it's not going to feel great. Like maybe it'll feel great the moment you discover it because you're like, oh my God, Eureka! I found my giant flaw. Now I'll be amazing. But it's like, actually, it's not now. It's like, we got a few
Process.
more steps to take, but optimists that we might be, we're like, you know.
That is so cute. Okay, so where can they find all of your stuff, all of your content? So I like the input that the technology is really just the platform content kind of distribution. That's really the only technology, and truthfully, that is really the whole purpose of it. So tell us about where we can get your stuff and where we can get your insights.
Yeah, well, you can buy my book, which is just like a paper or audio. It's me reading it.
Okay.
Or you can join my groups. I have one on love and romance and one on just like daily hitting the pavement, getting your goals met, but also being spiritual about it. Those are easy to join. Just like email me or DM me on Instagram. You
Okay.
can watch my stuff on Instagram. I'm at Guided by Biet. What are the best? Oh, I also have a membership. So if you just want a really low touch, very inexpensive, like you can just watch some videos of mine. I have a membership on my website. So if you just go to guidedbybiet.com, there's a membership there. And that'll have a bunch of videos with breathwork, somatic, meditation that you can do, again, in your underwear.
Nice. Guidedbybiet.com. And then Instagram at guidedbybiet.
Yep.
Beautiful. And then you have at least some of the access, and then your high profile. I haven't asked about all the high profile clients, but I know you have a lot. Those are
Yeah.
probably some interesting stories. They seem to be, um, very empathetic or very kind of spiritual, very artistic, and feeling a lot already. And then they get with you, and I can just imagine that just really the impact of that being fantastic.
It is. It's fantastic for everyone involved because again, the matrix breaks when good people come together, and for me, it's like, I'm not interested in working with shitty people. I'm interested in
Hmm.
working with really great people. And that impact is important. If someone's already making impact in the world, I want to help to make that impact as soft and gentle and loving as possible.
Good. Okay, Biet, thank you for your time. Biet Simkin, she's the best. She's fantastic.
Thanks,
I appreciate you
Michelle.
being on the podcast. Thanks, everyone.